All right, who is ready for the Grinch? How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Let's make sure everybody can see it. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just up north, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one knows quite the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with that sour, grinchy frown, all the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers, nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, the noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated, the noise, 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 noise. That does look like a noisy time, especially that big drum up top. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who host beast, which was something that the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. There they are at their big table. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing, and they'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas song, the more Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful. The Grinch got an awful, wonderful, awful idea. He's thinking up something bad. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed from his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like St. Nick. Then all I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Oh my goodness. Here's Max, this horn. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks and a ramshackle sleigh that he hitched up to old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. There he goes, on up to the roof. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room. He took every present. Pop guns and bicycles and roller skates and drums, checkerboards and tricycles and popcorns and plums. He stuffed them in bags, the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Oh my goodness, taking all of the stuff. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. And here's their icebox. That's what you used to use to keep your food cold, a big giant piece of ice. That's before it was called a refrigerator. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, I'll stuff up the tree. And then the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who. Little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd gotten out of bed for a cold cup of water. He stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? Good question. But you know that old Grinch, he was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on the tree that just won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child, and he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. He's mean Santa. Then the last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, that old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. You see the little tiny crumb? Oh, so little. Then he did the same thing with the other Who houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still in bed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he picked up and packed up his sled. He packed it up with their presents, the ribbons and wrappings, the tags and the tinsel and the trimmings and the trappings. Then, 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then all the Who's down in Whoville will cry, boo-hoo. That is a big package. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused and he put a Grinch hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow, but it started out low and then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was. Merry, very. He stared down at Whoville the Grinch, popped his eyes, and then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or the other, it came just the same. Oh, that's Max playing with his toy. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. The end. How the Grinch Stole Christmas.